Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. At my father's funeral, I was told to sit in the back because real family comes first. My mother snorted, "You always embarrassed him." My sister whispered, "He died hating you." But when the organist played a song I wrote as a child, everyone frozen, and a note fell from the casket with my name on it. I'm Lila. I'm 38 now, born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm the oldest of two. My sister Sienna is 36, married with 2 kids. She's the golden child, and no, that's not jealousy talking. It's just how it's always been. Growing up, my father Grant was strict, cold. Even he was a former Marine and later a big shot in the insurance industry, ran his life like a ledger. Everything had a place of value. Emotions didn't factor in. My mother Marion was a Southern perfectionist, quiet, composed, obsessed with appearances. Together they maintained an image, successful, moral, traditional. The kind of family that looked good in church pews and neighborhood. Block parties, the kind of family who never discussed anything real at the dinner table. I didn't fit. I was bookish, creative, and far too introspective for my own good. I loved to write, and I played the piano almost obsessively. I wasn't a prodigy or anything, but when you're 10 and constantly drowning in your own head, music feels like air. I wrote a simple tune one day, more melody than structure, and named it Porch Light. It was innocent, made up of a few chords, that reminded me of late summer evenings on our rickety old porch. I played it for my dad once. I remember so clearly the way he looked at me, not with pride or curiosity, just a kind of confusion. He left the room before I finished. That night, I heard him say to my mother, "She's always been strange. I don't know what we're supposed to do with her." That was when I learned that silence can be louder than yelling. Sienna, meanwhile, followed the script. Ballet classes, church choir, cheerleading. She laughed when she was supposed to, cried when it was expected. She became everything I wasn't. My parents doted on her, and the more they did, the more I tried to disappear. By the time I was in high school, my father barely acknowledged me. When he did, it was to correct me. How I spoke, what I wore, the books I read. When I got into UNCC Chapel Hill, he told me, "English isn't a real degree." I should have cut ties then, but I didn't. I guess I kept hoping for something that looked like acceptance. Years went by. I moved to Atlanta after graduation and started teaching at a charter school. I published some short fiction. Nothing huge, but enough to feel proud of. I sent my parents a copy of my first printed story. They never mentioned it. Not even a "got it, thanks." The last time I saw my father, before the funeral, was 5 years ago at Sienna's birthday. He said I looked tired and asked if I'd ever considered switching to accounting or something practical. Sienna gave me a tight-lipped smile and changed the subject. So when she called me last week, just said, "Dad died. Heart attack. Service is Saturday." I didn't cry. I didn't feel much at all, but I went. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I was just afraid I'd regret it if I didn't. The church was packed. My father was well known in the community, and Asheville is the kind of town where people show up even if it's just to be seen. I arrived early, unsure where to sit. Sienna met me at the door. She looked immaculate, of course, hair in a tight bun, her husband at her side in a crisp black suit. "There's no room in the front. You can sit in the back," she said flatly. I blinked. I'm his daughter. She didn't even look at me when she said, "Real family comes first." I stood there for a second, trying to figure out if I'd heard her wrong. Then my mother came over. Grief looked good on her, elegant, somber, stoic. She didn't cry. She never does. She leaned in, her voice low but cutting. "You always embarrassed him." She turned away before I could say anything. I walked to the back of the church and sat down alone. The stained glass above the altar glowed in that way it only does during mourning funerals, casting colors on everyone but me. The service went as expected, polished, rehearsed, heavy with manufactured sorrow. Sienna gave a eulogy about what a great provider he was, how much he loved his family and his integrity. I barely listened. Then the organ started playing. It was subtle at first, just a few notes. Then I recognized it, Porch Light, the exact notes I wrote as a child. I felt dizzy. There was no way anyone could have known it. I never recorded it. I hadn't played it in over 20 years. My hands started to shake. Sienna looked up at the organist with a confused expression. My mother's posture stiffened. The room went quiet. Then something strange happened. A small white envelope slid out from under one of the flower arrangements on the casket. It landed gently on the floor. Nobody moved at first. Then someone picked it up and handed it to the minister, who turned it over and read aloud, "Lila Whitmore." I felt every eye on me as I walked to the front of the church. The world got very small and very quiet. My mother looked furious. Sienna looked stunned. The note was in my father's handwriting. It read, "Lila, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. I won't pretend to be the father you deserved. You challenged me in ways I never understood, and I punished you for it. That's on me. But I never stopped hearing that melody, the one you wrote, Porch Light. It stuck with me all these years. I kept it. I had it transcribed. I didn't know how to tell you I was proud, so I didn't. I hope you'll forgive me, even if I don't deserve it. I'm sorry for what I didn't say when it mattered. You were never the problem." Dad, I don't remember walking back to my seat. I don't remember the rest of the service. Afterward, I left without speaking to anyone. Not my mother, not Sienna, not the people who suddenly looked at me like they were seeing something new. I sat in my car for over an hour, the note in my lap, wondering why he waited until death. To be honest, wondering if he meant it or if it was just guilt. That's where I'm at, Reddit. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to do. I've spent a lifetime thinking I was broken, that I didn't belong, that I had to earn something that should have been freely given. And now I don't even know who he really was. I haven't returned Sienna's messages. She's been calling. My mother sent a card 2 days ago. Just her name. No words. I've been playing piano again. That's something, but I feel like I'm unraveling. Part of me wants to scream at them. Part of me wants to disappear again. What would you do? I didn't go home right away after the funeral. I couldn't. My little one-bedroom in Atlanta felt too far away. But the idea of staying in Asheville made my skin crawl. So I checked into a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, the kind with flickering hallway lights and scratchy towels. But it was quiet, and for the first time in days, I could hear myself think. I laid the letter on the bed like it was sacred. I must have read it 100 times. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. A secret message, a sign, he meant it, something between the lines that would change how hollow everything felt. But no, it said what it said. I found myself wondering how he even got the song. I never wrote it down formally. Did he remember it that clearly? Had he asked someone to notate it from memory? Had he recorded me somehow without me knowing? The idea of him remembering it, obsessing over it, even felt bizarre. This was the same man who once told me I looked ridiculous playing piano barefoot. The man who turned up the volume on the TV every time I practiced, who called my writing navel-gazing garbage. But then again, maybe he didn't hate it. Maybe he just hated not understanding it. Or me. The next morning, I drove past our old house. It looked smaller. The shutters needed paint and the hedges were overgrown. The porch swing was gone. A for sale sign was staked in the front yard. I parked a little down the street and watched. For a few minutes. Unsure why. Just processing, I guess. I remembered the smell of Sunday roast coming from the kitchen window. The way I used to trace raindrops on the glass in the den while my father yelled at the football game. The carpet I once spilled grape juice on and lied about. The time I got grounded for reading the bell jar because depression isn't ladylike. A family of 3 walked by with a golden retriever. The daughter, maybe 10, had a sketchbook under her arm. She reminded me of me before the silencing started. I hadn't planned to reach out to Dia, but on the 3rd day of avoiding her calls, she sent me a text that just said, "Coffee one time, please." I agreed. mostly out of curiosity, maybe some morbid desire to hear how they spun the whole thing. We met at Old Europe Cafe downtown. It was our father's favorite spot for years. He used to come here after church with his coworkers. I remember once at 13 I asked if I could join them. He told me it was grown-up time and gave me $5 to buy myself a treat and be quiet. Sienna was already there when I arrived. She looked tense, sipping from a porcelain cup, her manicured fingers fidgeting with a napkin. "Lila," she said as I sat. No hug, just my name, like it was a peace offering. Sienna. There was a long silence. Then, she said, "I didn't know about the letter." I believed her. She's many things, but not a liar. At least not a practiced one. She always had to rehearse first. "I'm not mad about the letter," I said. "I'm mad that it took his death for him to acknowledge me." Sienna looked down. "He was complicated." "No," I said. "He was cruel. There's a difference." Another silence stretched between us, the kind that used to fill whole car rides growing up. Finally, she said, "He did keep things, not just the music. I found your old stories on his desk printed out. Some had notes." I blinked. "What kind of notes?" "Some critical, but some thoughtful, like he was trying to understand you." I didn't know what to do with that. "What does it matter now? He could have just told me," I said. "Even once." Sienna nodded. "I think he was ashamed, not of you, of how he handled you." I stared at her. "You mean ignored?" She nodded again. "We all did that." Caught me off guard. Sienna had always been Dad's girl, Mom's protege, but I'd never heard her admit fault before. She continued. "I was scared to speak up. He always made it seem like loving you was a threat to him." "Because I wasn't like him," I said. "None of us were," she whispered, "but you showed it." After coffee, I didn't go back to the motel. I drove to the cemetery. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to scream. Maybe I just wanted proof he was actually gone. His grave was marked with a temporary sign, those simple plastic ones they use before the real headstone arrives. I sat on the damp grass, lettering in my coat pocket. There were no grand speeches, no whispered prayers. I just sat. "You could have told me," I said. Finally, one real conversation could have changed everything. A breeze lifted the hem of my coat, and for a second I swore I could hear the faint echo of porch light on the wind. Maybe it was in my head. Maybe it was the organist in some nearby chapel. Or maybe somehow it was real. I've started playing again. First just a few notes, then whole songs. My fingers are rusty, but the muscle memory is still there. I even dug out a few old notebooks. Some stories that never made it to print. Some too raw, too close to the bone. Now I wonder if I should try again, write something real. Not for them, not for validation, just for me. But I still don't know what to do with my mother. She hasn't said a word since the funeral. Not even a follow-up to the card she sent with just her name. It's like she believes the note from my father erased her part in everything. It didn't. If anything, it made her. Silence louder. She sat next to that man for 40 years. She watched him break me in small daily ways, and she held the glue every time, and chose not to use it. Sometimes I wonder if she hated me more than he did, or maybe she just hated how much I reminded her of herself before she buried her own voice. I'm not ready to confront her. Not yet. Maybe not ever, but I'm thinking about writing her a letter. Not to forgive, not to mend, just to speak. Just to say the things that were never said aloud. Because if I've learned anything in the last week, it's this. Silence doesn't protect you. It buries you, and I've been buried long enough. I didn't end up writing that letter to my mother. Instead, I started writing something else. I wrote about her, about the stares she gave me when I asked questions in front of guests, about the times she corrected the way I sat, spoke, and laughed, about how she told me at 14, "Don't talk like that in public. People already think you're odd." About how she flinched when I cried, how she praised me only when others were watching. I wrote it all, and when I finished, I didn't send it to her. I submitted it to a Southern literary magazine I'd admired since college. They published it. It was a quiet revenge, not vindictive, not public, just enough. A few months passed. The days got longer. Spring in Asheville is polite. The dogwoods bloom like they've never seen conflict. I visited the cemetery once or twice, but less and less. The motel I stayed at after the funeral shut down. Someone painted the shutters on our old house a cheerful blue. The neighborhood moved on. Life, as it always does, marched forward without asking permission. One afternoon in early May, I ran into a woman named Hazel from our old church. She was a kind face in a sea of judgment growing up. We chatted a bit, catching up, and just as we were about to part ways, she said, "I read your story, the one in Southern Crest. I knew it was about your family." I was tense, but she smiled. It was beautiful, brave. That moment was the real closure. Not the funeral, not the note, not even Sienna's apology. It was someone who once saw me invisible and now saw me clearly. Who read my Hazel and didn't. "Look away." Word must have gotten around because a week later, Sienna called again. "They're whispering," she said, not sounding angry, just tired about the story. I asked about us, about Mom, about what he was really like. "People are asking why you weren't mentioned in the obituary. Why did you sit in the back?" I waited. Sienna finally said, "I think she's embarrassed." "Good," I said. She didn't argue. A month after that, I got a letter in the mail from my mother. It was handwritten, brief, stiff. No apologies, just a single sentence. "I hope you got what you wanted." Stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it, put it in the back of a drawer, and poured myself a glass of wine. Yes, Marion, I did get what I wanted. I got my voice back. The best part? I didn't need anyone's permission. I didn't have to scream, beg, or destroy anyone to do it. I just told the Hazel, and the Hazel did the rest. A few months later, I was invited to speak at a local author event. Nothing fancy, just a panel at the library downtown. I nearly said no, but then I remembered the girl I used to be, the one playing barefoot in the living room, the one who believed her voice was too weird, too much. I went, I read Porch Light. Aloud, then the story about my family. A woman came up afterward, holding her teenage daughter's hand. She said, "Thank you. I think she needed to hear that. I think I needed to hear that too." Sienna and I aren't close, but we're not estranged, either. We've reached an understanding. She still sends photos of her kids. I respond occasionally. We talk. We avoid the heavy stuff. But for now, that's enough. My mother, I haven't spoken to her since her letter. But the funny thing is, I no longer feel the ache for her approval. She built a house in silence, and I finally walked out of it. Now I live in a modest place near Bent Creek. I teach part-time, write full-time, and play piano for myself again. Some evenings, I still play Porch Light. It doesn't make me cry anymore. It feels like home. Finally, not the kind I came from, the kind I built myself, and that, Reddit, is the ending I never thought I'd get. Not revenge in fire and fury, but revenge in peace. In peace.